Hello, in this tutorial, I'm going to go over creating a neural network using Java from the ground up, totally from scratch. The reason I'm making this is because you don't really see this too often on YouTube, and so I wanted to make sure, I've had a couple of people ask about this, and so I wanted to make a comprehensive video about creating a neural network from scratch using Java. Usually you see it with Python or R. And for good reason, those languages have great built-in libraries for creating neural networks. Java is lacking that a little bit, but you can still do it, and I'll step you through how to do it. So just an overview of what we're going to do in this series. It's going to be a series of videos, probably about 10 videos, and this is just kind of the first one where I'm going to give you an overview, as well as kind of take you through the first part of building our network. And so I'm going to actually run through two different neural networks I'm going to make. One with some kind of mocked up data. And the reason for that is when you have the data provided to you, instead of what you would do with a regular, like a real neural network, is create some random values and then tweak them. But if we create random values, then it's hard for you to test that you've done everything right, because you're going to get different results than I will. And so I'm going to do it once with just some mock-up data that, so you can see so you can test that you're doing it right and see that you're kind of getting the same results that I am. And then we will do one with the very popular MNIST data set that you see right here, that is consists of a handwritten digits between each input is one digit between 0 and 9, and so the goal of that network is to correctly predict the digit that was written. For instance, if we send it this one, it should come back 3, this 4, 2, and so on and so on. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but this is kind of the process, is that we give the network some inputs. So going back here, our inputs would actually be pixels. These are, I forget the size of this, but I think it's like 36 by 36 pixels. I'm probably wrong on that. When we get to that part of the series, I'll make sure I have that in detail. And anyway, there's like 700 inputs. Each pixel is an input, basically, and it's a number between 0 and 255 on the grayscale. And so that's an example of what an input could be. So when we look at those digits, it's going to be pixels, and there's going to be a bunch of them. Right here, you only see 3. When we get to that one, there's going to be like 720. And then you perform some calculations, and you produce the next layer in your neural network, which is called the hidden layer. And then you perform some more calculations, and you get your output, which hopefully is, again, going back to this example, hopefully would be, so in this example here, you'd have 10 outputs, each one representing a digit between 0 and 9. And you would hope that your highest value, like it would be numbers between 0 and 1. And you would hope that all the other numbers, all the other outputs would be very low. And then there would be an obvious one that was high or close to 1. And that would, like, for example, for this one, it would be the third one, which would represent the digit 3. And so we would hope that our neural network predicted the number 3 in that example. That would be the goal of it. And obviously it doesn't do that the first time through. And so you do what's called back propagation to, you kind of look at how off it was, calculate the loss, tweak our values, and then run it back through, and you just keep on doing that. So that's our process. Like I said, so we have some weights and biases, some activation functions that we'll run through. We calculate our loss, and then we go back again. And so that's the process. Hopefully that makes sense. as we step through this, we will definitely, I hope that you'll get a better understanding of how neural networks work. Yeah, I already kind of talked about this, so I'm going to move into what we're going to do. We're going to get into building a neural network. We're going to create our inputs and do some calculations to produce our first layer, the next layer, which would be your first hidden layer. One thing I'll say, if I go back to this image, is so our inputs are decided by the amount of inputs is really decided by the data you're working with. It could be just a few, or in the example I was talking about here, we have like all these pixels, so like 720. So you'd have literally, this would be 720 neurons in this input layer. The hidden layer, though, is up to you. And it's up to you, and we'll talk about that later in this series, but I would even have to do it too. It depends on what your data is. You would probably want to do a little research. It's already been done. No use in recreating the wheel. Do some research into what's recommended into the amount of neurons in the next layer. You'd be surprised, though, as you'll see when we work with the digits. I think I'm just going to have us do 10 neurons in the next layer. So we're going to go from 720 to 10, and then to an output of 10 as well. And it's amazing how effective it can be on just that kind of short transition, just that little amount of neurons. It's still pretty good at predicting. But that's up to you, the computer programmer, to decide how many neurons are on this layer. I just wanted to make sure that was clear because it's not obvious. It may not be obvious. One other thing I'll say is it's also up to you, the programmers, how many hidden layers you have. This is a very simple one, and in both our networks that we will create, we're just going to have these 3 layers that you see here, various amount of neurons, but you could have many layers in between your input and your output. As I said, though, we're just going to kind of keep it simple and just have one hidden layer. But I just want to make you aware that that is not always the case. Okay, so that's the overview of what we're going to do in this series of videos. I'm going to end here for this. In the next video, we'll get into actually programming. We'll take the first step of sending in our input values and performing some calculations with our weights and biases to come up with values for our neurons in our next hidden layer. So please let me know if you have any questions or comments, and see you in the next video. Thanks.